Hey guys, it's the Loud Guys. Today we are going to watch the real reason why US Navy has 11 aircraft carriers. So this is a very strange topic because why there should be a question like this? Like if you want to have 11, you want to have 12. So there should be a full freedom of it. And why is that question that US Navy has 11 aircraft carriers? And when I was searching for it, so there was a question mark that I have found that why US Navy does not have 10 aircraft carriers. So is there something that US Navy does not want to have 10? Is there something with the number 10, or is there something with the number 11 that they just want to have this much aircraft carriers? Because we all know that this is the biggest navy fleet of all, and they have that amount of aircraft carriers that I don't think so the whole world has that much amount, or I think so it is somewhat matching only. So US Navy is very very big, and their aircraft carriers are also very big, and they are also very high maintenance and very with very high cost of production. So let's see why US Navy has 11 aircraft carriers.
And seriously, I'm not that much familiar about the aircraft carriers, but we have seen a lot of videos of aircrafts, and we have informations about the aircrafts, and but we don't have any information and knowledge about the aircraft carriers. And if we talk about India, so I do think that in India you will find only 2 to 3 aircrafts only. And and it's if any country is you know is not that much good financially, then obviously they don't have any aircraft because they could not afford it right now. And I'm also so much excited to know about its actual price. And whenever we see some expensive jets or aircraft, we are always get so shocked that they are in billions or millions. So that's the reason I'm so much excited to watch this video, and so much excited to know the price of these aircraft carriers. So yeah, let's watch the video.
Yes, and the real reason why US Navy has 11 aircraft carriers.
Yes.
So let's watch this video.
Aircraft carriers are so important to the US government that there is a federal law mandating the minimum number of operational carriers that the US Navy must have.
Oh,
That number is 11. But how did they come up with this number?
Yeah.
And why is there so
Yeah.
much emphasis on aircraft carriers and not on other types of ships?
and
The
why is
number of
there a
aircraft
law?
carriers, the size of the US Navy, and the size of the US military as a whole all follow a simple formula that's based on two major wars. But it's not what you think. Being the most powerful is not the same thing as being powerful enough.
Okay.
You often hear that the United States has the largest and most powerful navy in the world.
Yep.
But just being number one is not necessarily sufficient. Just like how any MMA champion would be overwhelmed if they face multiple opponents at once, the most powerful military may also not be able to defeat the combined forces of multiple nations. So the question is, how much power is enough?
Oh,
The United States military doctrine is based around power projection. Power projection, simply put, is the ability of a country to deploy and sustain forces outside of their territory. To accommodate this, there are currently about 750 US foreign military bases spread across 80 nations around the world. But the United States' primary means of power projection, especially where permanent basing is limited, is the Navy. And this is
Yes.
precisely why there is so much emphasis on aircraft carriers.
that's why.
Where is the closest aircraft carrier? They say that's the first question that US presidents ask at the time of a crisis. But it's really the air wing assigned to the aircraft carrier that the presidents are interested in. The carrier is just a floating airbase. The primary role of any aircraft carrier is to enable operation of the air wing that it carries. Kinda like how bread is just a vehicle for delivering butter. And the true power projection that aircraft carriers are known for is really enabled by the airplanes in the carrier air wing, which can project tactical air power over long distances, including airborne early warning, air interdiction, and air-to-surface warfare.
Oh,
In fact, the same law that currently demands the US Navy to have a minimum of 11 aircraft carriers also requires a minimum of 9 carrier air wings. But how
Oh.
did the US government come up with the number 11?
yes, that's the main question.
The US Navy's 11 supercarriers are more than all other nations' aircraft carriers combined.
Yeah.
And that's just in quantity. Displacement aside, the American aircraft carriers are all nuclear powered, giving them unlimited range. But not all 11 supercarriers are deployable simultaneously.
Oh, why?
At any given time, about a third are in maintenance yards dealing with upgrades and overhauls, a third are undergoing training and preparation, and a third are on deployment.
Oh.
Even though, if needed, more carriers could be rushed into deployment, the total number of deployable supercarriers is far from the nominal 11. In practice, 2 to 3 supercarriers are deployed at any given time,
Okay.
and that is enough. Enough to fight 2 wars in 2 separate regions of the world at once and decisively win both.
Wow.
Wow, seriously.
Under President
With just 2
Lyndon
or
B.
3.
Johnson, the US armed forces were sized to be able to fight 2 wars at the same time. At some point, even a half war was added to be fought in the third war.
Half
When
war.
Nixon took office in 1969, the formula was changed to accommodate fighting 1.5 wars simultaneously.
1.5
Each
war.
president after that somewhat modified this strategy. But the basic measure still seems to be defined as the ability to fight in 2 geographically separated regions of the world nearly simultaneously. This is referred to as 2 major regional contingencies strategy or 2 major theater wars strategy. The ability to deter and defeat large-scale cross-border aggression in 2 distant theaters in overlapping timeframes is key for the United States to remain a global power and maintain its worldwide interests.
You know, they say it's very
The most
hard to
recent
maintain
example
being
of
number
this
1.
strategy in action is the
Wow.
2 overlapping major wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Iraq War started in 2003, overthrowing Saddam Hussein, and the official withdrawal of US troops was completed in 2011. Although the mismanagement of the power vacuum following Saddam's demise gave prominence to ISIS in 2014, followed by the re-involvement of US troops. In parallel, the war in Afghanistan started in 2001 and went on for 20 years. In February
Bloody
of
war.
2020, the US and Taliban signed an agreement in Qatar, where Taliban agreed to take unspecified action to prevent other groups, including Al-Qaeda, from using Afghan soil to threaten the US and its allies, in return for full withdrawal of all international forces from Afghanistan. By August 31st, 2021, as the whole world was watching, the US and allied forces had hastily departed from Kabul, putting the
Yep.
Taliban back in control of the country. But this idea of fighting 2 wars at once goes back to the late 19th and early 20th century. The late 19th century was a time of territorial expansion for the United States. In 1898 alone, the United States annexed Hawaii, acquired Guam and Puerto Rico, and purchased the Philippines from Spain for $20 million.
Philippines?
With some of those islands being in the Pacific and the rest in the Atlantic, Navy presence was required in both oceans. The completion of the Panama Canal in 1914 allowed the crossing of ships from one side to the other, which meant the US Navy could be present in both oceans without having twice as many ships.
Nice.
But by the 1930s, with the rise of new regional powers to the west and the decline of the Royal Navy to protect the United States against threats from the east, it became necessary for defense planners to consider the possibility of confronting 2 threats simultaneously, from Germany on the east and from Japan on the west.
Oh.
The result was the 1940 Vincent Walsh Act, also known as the Two-Ocean Navy Act, which funded a 70% increase in the size of the US Navy fleet. This was the largest naval procurement bill in US history, authorizing $8.5 billion at the time for a naval expansion program that put emphasis on aircraft and aircraft carriers.
178 billion
This
in
resulted in
22.
the construction of 18 aircraft carriers and expansion of air and naval facilities across the Pacific.
Oh.
Now, it's one thing to come up with a concept or strategy, like one that allows for fighting and winning 2 major wars simultaneously. But it's a whole other thing to actually come up with the numbers. How many Army divisions, how many Air Force fighter wings, and how many Navy carrier strike groups are required to support such a strategy?
Yeah.
And within each one, say the Navy, how many and what types of ships are exactly needed? The US Navy's goal is to reach 355 ships by 2034.
What?
Currently, they have
My
298.
God.
And at the rate
Whoa.
that they're going, retiring 2-year-old ships, it's debatable that they'll hit that goal. Remember
Retiring a
that aircraft
2-year-old ship.
carriers are vulnerable on their own, which is why they never sail alone. A variety of ships are needed to support the carriers when deployed, which is why Navy ships like cruisers, destroyers, and at times submarines and supply ships accompany carriers in a formation known as a carrier strike group.
Oh.
But conservative public policy organizations, notably studies done by the Heritage Foundation, call for a much bigger military. For example, not a 355-ship navy, but a 400-ship navy.
Oh my
And
God.
not 11 aircraft carriers.
Now
but
you're getting
13.
crazy.
I mean 12 plus 1. The one accounts for a carrier that is almost always undergoing extensive midlife overhaul. The rationale for wanting the other 12 aircraft carriers is to maintain one aircraft carrier at each of the 3 major regions of the world:
Oh.
Atlantic, Pacific, and the Mediterranean/Middle East. Then to have 3 additional aircraft carriers for each carrier deployed.
Huh?
This is to ensure that the ships, the crew, and the aircraft on board can remain healthy and effective.
Wow.
Less ships could mean longer deployment times, which may not be operationally realistic. The 340-day deployment of USS Nimitz, which ended in March of 2021, was the longest deployment of any aircraft carrier since the Vietnam War. Even though the proponents of the 2 major theater wars strategy insist that no one has been able to come up with a better and more robust solution for sizing the US military, there are massive costs associated with maintaining and growing an even bigger military force, something that has proven difficult given that US military budget as a percentage of the GDP has been declining over the past few decades.
Oh.
In addition, other forms of threats like cyber warfare could throw a big wrench into the mix. Cyber attacks that can cause widespread disruption to communication systems in the United States, or even worse, in military command, control, and communication systems could have devastating consequences to US national security.
You know, when you see all these videos, you sometimes think that what is US preparing for? Like at the start of the video, this person said that okay, US wants to project power, but it just feels like US want to just rule over the world. They just want to like capture over everybody, because why are you going to upgrade to this big like this much? Like they want to have 400 ships and so much. I don't think so any other country is trying to compete them at that point of level. Like even China is trying to compete, but China is trying to just do it because it wants to like extend its power in the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean. So that's why, and that's for them it is just like okay, they want to have some ships, that is enough for them. But to compete with US is a hell lot of another thing, because I think the US is preparing for all the like big powers like China, Russia, and this powers in Saudi Arabia and all. Like if they get together, they have to like impose something, and like you know the danger is increasing day by day. Like because now we are seeing that US dollar was the reserve currency for the world for so long, but recently we have been seeing like all the other countries are trying to like upthrone it or like dethrone it. So due to that, like there is some cause of issue for that, and US will try to make sure that it again stamps its foot and says no, it will be the US dollar itself. So we don't know what will happen, but yes, the army that US has is crazy, and the 11 aircraft carriers rule is very strange for me, because I have never seen any such law of any other country where the country has mandated that okay, you need to have this many aircraft carriers. So like this is the amount of expense that you have to carry. Wow, this is a crazy number.
And seriously, this video shocked me so much, and literally I was in shock, and I was just laughing when he said that after in 2045 the America would have like 13 aircraft carriers, and he said around 283 or 300 around 300 something ships. And I was shocked, and I was like that my god, US is so US is so developed country, and I was like that we cannot easily I do think that it is very difficult to fight with the US, even when 2 or 3 countries gonna unite. After that they can beat the America. Otherwise America is so strong and its power is also increasing day by day. And we also got to know that how expensive these carriers are. We got to know that we also got to know that 11 carriers are not, you know, that much the are different from each other because of their expenses. Some are, you know, I don't you know, get a lot of things from this video, but I grasped little bit things which I talked about. And I also got to know that these carriers are so powerful. And yeah, like when Russia or China you know, will unite, then maybe they will, you know, maybe America will lose the war, maybe. But if it is, you know, if the power of the America is increasing day by day just like this, then I don't think that it is very easy to defeat America. So yeah, I really enjoyed this video, but on the same side, I didn't get a lot of things from this video.
Yes, and the thing is, like, all the things were very, very strange for us to know. Like, they want to have a reserve aircraft carrier for a carrier that is working on, that is deployed. So, very strange things we got to know in this video. So, how do you feel about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So, do like, share, and
Subscribe.
bye.